I am making a Rose Dragon deck profile. I finally got my hands on some of the legendary on the 5Ds decks. Uh, and honestly, Rose Dragon was my favorite of the three, with Blackwing being second, and then surprisingly, I didn't really care for the Yusei stuff. It's just kind of surprising that the protagonist is the one whose cards I don't really care for. But anyway, starting off with the monsters for this deck, I play one copy of Glow Up Bulb. It has the effect of once per duel. If it's in the graveyard, you can send top card of your deck to the graveyard and special summon it. And it's just a level 1 tuner. Next, I play one copy of Spore the Fairy Seed. This card has the effect that if this card is special summoned, its level is increased by 1 for every monster you control. And then, let's see, forget summoning requirement. And then, if you control Ancient Fairy Dragon or a light monster that is beast, plant, or fairy, and this card is in your graveyard, you can special summon this card, but it locks you into Synchro monsters for the rest of the turn, which that is perfectly fine. So it will summon itself as long as you have a light plant monster on the field, which, let's see, don't believe there's any in the main deck, so it's really just okay. There's one in the main deck. This is my current build. There's one in the main and one in the extra. The extra deck one is the more fun one. Next, I play one copy of Fairy Ant, the Circular Sorcerer. This card is just a free summon if you have a plant or insect monster that's either on the field or in either graveyard. And then, if you're summoning a plant or insect synchro monster, you can use this as a non-tuner. So I like it because it can be a level 3 tuner or a level 3 non-tuner. Next, I play the one copy of Revolution Synchron. This card can, if you synchro summon Power Tool Dragon or level 7 or 8 Dragon Synchro Monster, you can use this card in your hand as material once per turn. So I actually do like this because if you have a really bad hand, but you have this and say like Molcharmy, you can actually normal summon the Molcharmy and tune it with the Revolution Synchron in your hand or summon your Bramble Rose, Black Rose, any level 7 synchro you'd like, as long as it is a Power Tool Dragon or a level 7 or 8 Dragon. I realize it was Dragon, so Bramble Rose doesn't really work because Bramble Rose is a plant. But it also has the effect of if you control level 7 or higher Synchro monster while it's in your graveyard, you can send a top card of your deck to the graveyard, special summon this, and its level becomes a 1. So in the graveyard, it's essentially a Glow Up Bulb if you control a level 7 Synchro. The next, I play two copies of Twilight Rose Black Knight. Twilight Rose Black Knight has the effect that while you control a Synchro plant monster, or while you control a Synchro monster, all your plant monsters gain 1,000 attack. And then the rest of its effects are all hard ones per turns. Which is, if this card is normal or special summoned, you can special summon a Black Rose Dragon or level 4 or lower plant monster from your graveyard, but its effects are negated. And you can target one other plant monster you control, increase or decrease its level by 1. Which I actually really like this card. I tried it at 1, I didn't really like it, so I bumped it up to 2, and I actually enjoy it at 2. Next, I play 3 copies of Red Rose Dragon. Red Rose Dragon has the effect that if it is sent to the graveyard as synchro material, then you can special summon a Rose Dragon monster from your hand or deck, except another copy of itself. And then Red Rose Dragon also has the effect that if it was sent to the graveyard for a synchro summon of a Black Rose Dragon, let's see, I believe it has to be Black Rose Dragon, or a plant synchro monster, then you can add to your hand a Frozen Rose or a Blooming of the Darkest Rose from your deck. And then you can only use that effect of Red Rose Dragon once per turn, which all of that is just one effect. It's just, if it's sent to the synchro material, you get to summon a Rose Dragon. But if it was for a Black Rose Dragon or a Plant Synchro, you can then do the second part. Next, I play 3 copies of Rose Princess. Rose Princess has the effect that if your opponent controls a monster, you can special summon this card from your hand. However, if you summon this way, it's a tuner monster. And then you can also discard this card to then add 1 copy of White Rose Cloister from your deck to your hand. I don't know if I like the White Rose Cloister and Rose Princess. If I don't, I'll probably take them out for 3 copies of... See, I think it was Supe Dawnwalker and 1 copy of Supe. Just because that gives you a free level 6, and if you have Black Rose Garden in play, then you can actually use that for... Or ordinarily you can use that summon to get a free Rage Rose Witch without having to commit a normal summon. Or if you have the Black Rose Garden, you can make the funny level 6 Synchro. Next, I play 3 copies of Roxrose Dragon. Roxrose Dragon has the effect that on summon, you can add a card that mentions Black Rose Dragon from your deck to your hand, except for another copy of itself. And then while this card's in your graveyard, if a face-up Rose Dragon monster or plant Synchro monster you control is destroyed by battle or an opponent's card effect, you can add this card to your hand. You can use each effect of Roxrose Dragon once per turn. Next, I play 1 copy of Cyclos, the Circular Sprite. This card is in here just because it with the variant is just a free level 7 Synchro. Or free level 7 plant or insect Synchro monster, I should say. As this card has the effect that when it's normal or special summoned, you can discard a card to add an insect or plant tuner monster from your deck to your hand, except for another copy of itself. And then it was... If an insect or plant synchro monster is on or a special summoned while this card is in your graveyard, then you can special summon this card but banish it when it leaves the field. I always get that part confused because I always think it's the thing is on the field you can summon it, but it has to be when it's summoned. But it's like this card because you can add Variant, or you can add any of the plant tuners from deck to hand, which would be, it can let you add the Fairy Seed, Glow Up Bulb, the Twilight Rose Black Knight, and the one more, which will be the last monster before the hand traps. Next, I play 3 copies of Vengeful Witch. Vengeful Witch has the effect that if you control a Black Rose Dragon, a monster that mentions it, or a plant synchro monster, you can special summon this card from your hand. And then if this card is sent to the graveyard and a synchro monster is on the field, you can discard a card to special summon a plant monster with 1500 or less defense from your deck. But you cannot summon from the extra deck for the rest of the turn except for synchro monsters, which is fine because every card in the extra deck is a synchro monster. You can only use each effect of Vengeful Witch once per turn. Then next, I play 3 copies of White Rose Dragon. White Rose Dragon has the effect that when it's normal or special summon, you can add a Rose Dragon monster from your deck or graveyard. Or you special summon a Rose Dragon monster from your deck or graveyard. Except for another copy of White Rose Dragon. And then its following effects can only be used once per turn each. Where if you control a Dragon Tuner or Plant Tuner monster, you can special summon this card from your hand. And if this card is sent to the graveyard synchro material, you can send a level 4 or higher plant monster from your deck to the graveyard. So ordinarily, you will have this send the Circulos, or you'll have it send a Vengeful Witch. Those are usually what this will send. And then lastly, for the monsters that aren't hand traps, I play 1 copy of Stay Sailor Romarin. This is another card that you might potentially send off a White Rose Dragon. Has a quick effect of being able to target a face-up monster you control, send 1 other plant monster you control to the graveyard, and if you do, the next time the targeted monster would be destroyed by battle or card effect, it's not destroyed. That's not the part you care for. The part you really care for is if this card is sent to the graveyard by a card effect, you can send a level 5 or lower plant monster from your deck or extra deck to the graveyard. which usually you'll use that to send either Garden Rose Maiden or Lycoris Lily Reaper to the graveyard. For the hand traps, there's only 9. I play 3 copies of Ash Blossom and Joyous Spring. This is mainly in here to say no to Molcharmies, or stop decks that actually hard lose to Ash Blossom, which I don't believe there's very many that just hard lose to Ash. Next, I play 3 copies of Molcharmy Perulia. Perulia has the effect where you can discard it, so they make it so that every time your opponent summons from hand, you get to draw a card. And then during the end phase, all the Molcharmies share this effect. If you have more cards in your hand than the cards your opponent controls +6, you shuffle the difference into your deck at random. So if your opponent has 3 cards, but you have 12 in hand, then you have to randomly shuffle 3 cards from your hand back to the deck at the end of the turn. And you can only use 2 Molcharmy effects per turn. Or, my bad, you can only activate 2 Molcharmy effects per turn. Speaking of, I also play 3 copies of Molcharmy Fualos. Fualos is the exact same thing as Perulia, except it lets you draw when your opponent summons from deck or extra deck. And then that's it for the monsters. For the spells, I play 1 copy of Called by the Grave. This card just lets you target an effect monster in your opponent's graveyard, banish it, and then negate all cards your opponent controls with the same original name. Or I'll negate the effects of your opponent's activated monster effects with the same original name. So, usually this will be used to stop a hand trap that'll stop you from being able to play. Or you'll use this on like a Fualos or Perulia. Usually it's on Fualos. Next, I play 1 copy of Basil Rose Shoot. This card lets you special summon a Rose Dragon monster from your hand or graveyard in defense position. And if this set card is destroyed, you can target one of your Black Rose Dragon or a monster that mentions it that is banished or in your graveyard and special summon it. You only use each effect of Basil Rose Shoot once per turn. I kind of want to play more copies of this, just because I feel like it'd be a good card to just have on an end board. But also, I really like having it when you use Black Rose Dragon's effect to just nuke the board. And then lastly, for the 1-up spells, I play 1 copy of Foolish Burial, which lets you send a monster from your deck to the graveyard. Usually this will send either Fairy Seed or Glow Up Bulb. For the 2-up spells, I play 2 copies of White Rose Cloister. White Rose Cloister says as the effect, if you have no monsters, you can special summon a Rose Dragon monster or a plant monster from your hand. And you can only use the following effects of White Rose Cloister once per turn. Or you're going to use that effect of White Rose Cloister once per turn. And then during your draw phase, before you draw, you can declare 1 type of card, monster, spell, or trap. Reveal the top card of your deck, and if it's the declared type, then you get to apply the following effect, where your 7 or higher synchro monsters gain 1,000 attack. Or you apply that effect for the rest of the turn, even if the card leaves the field. Which that usually you're just using this to be able to you're just using this as a kind of starter or extender sort of thing. So you can start making a board without having to commit your normal summon. Then next, I play 2 copies of Frozen Rose. Frozen Rose lets you send a face-up monster you control to the graveyard, and then apply 1 of 2 effects depending on what you attributed. If you attributed a plant, then during the end phase of this turn, you get to draw 2 cards, then discard 1. Or if it was a non-plant, then you get to add a level 4 or lower plant monster from your deck to your hand. Which ordinarily you'll be using Frozen Rose while you have the next card in play, which is 3 copies of Black Rose Garden, which has the continuous effect of while it's in play, all monsters on the field become plant monsters. Which actually messes with decks like that require specific types, such as let's see, what was it called? Yummy, I believe. I believe they have cards that require them to have beast monsters and not plants. Another deck I know that this would hurt is Salamangreat, as some of their cards require them to have Cyberse monsters. I'm trying to remember if there are any other decks I can remember off the top of my head, but those are the ones I can think of that require specific types. But anyway, Black Rose Garden has the effect when activated that lets you just add a Rose Dragon monster from your deck or graveyard to your hand. And then it also has the effect that if this card is destroyed, you then inflict 100 points of damage to your opponent for every plant monster that's in your graveyard and banished. And then if it was destroyed by the effect of a Black Rose Dragon, then you get to inflict an additional 2,400 points of damage to your opponent. And then that's it for the main deck. The main thing I was thinking about changing is taking out the Rose Cloister and Rose Princess for Supe, or 3 copies of Supe Dawnwalker and 1 copy of Supe, just because it is a free level 6 Synchro monster. And the only downside of doing that is that it locks you into Synchro monsters. For the extra deck, I play 1 copy of Garden Rose Maiden. Garden Rose Maiden's only in this deck for its Grave effect of being able to banish it to then special summon a level 7 or 8 Dragon Synchro monster from the graveyard. And in a similar spot is 1 copy of Lycanroc Lily Reaper. This card's only in here for its graveyard effect, where if your opponent takes effect damage, you can banish this card from your graveyard to then target 1 monster they control with attack equal to or less than the difference in your life points and your opponent's, and then send it to the graveyard. As I believe it sends, it might destroy. Let's see how it's worded specifically. Okay, no. It does not target, it just sends a monster to the graveyard. So if your opponent only has like 300 life points, but you're still at like 6,800, then you'll be able to send any monster your opponent controls to the graveyard that has 6,500 or less attack. I don't know where I got those numbers from. It's just the first thing I thought of. And then next, I play 2 copies of Rage Rose Witch. Rage Rose Witch has the effect that while it's in play, your plant monsters cannot be destroyed by card effects, which means if this is in play, if you have this and Black Rose Garden in play, then when you activate Black Rose Dragon's effect to nuke the board, all you lose are your spell and trap cards, or your opponent loses everything else. But then Rage Rose Witch also has the effect of, because I have yet to memorize its effects, so I apologize for that. If this card is synchro summoned, you can send up to 1 plant monster each from your deck and extract to the graveyard. Also, you cannot special summon for the rest of the turn except for synchro monsters. And if a card or cards is sent from the field to the graveyard by card effect, while this card is in your graveyard, you can special summon this card. So, if you Black Rose and this card's in your graveyard, you can special summon this back. And then the funny plant synchro I was talking about earlier is the 1 copy of Queen of Thorns. Queen of Thorns is a really old synchro monster that requires any tuner plus a non-tuner plant monster to make. And it has the effect that if either player is to summon a monster from their hand that is not a plant monster, they must first pay 1,000 life points. Which in this deck, that's really just the Rose Dragons and Fairy Ant that are not those 4 are not plant monsters, so you'd have to pay 1,000 life points to summon them first. But I do like this card because if you summon it and your opponent wants a Nibiru, they have to pay 1,000 life points since Nibiru is not a plant monster. And I just really like this card as a go first floodgate sort of thing, just to deal with your opponent's life points. Then next, I play 1 copy of Perialis, Empress of Blossoms. Perialis has the effect that essentially is just once per turn, you can special summon a level 5 or higher plant monster from your hand or graveyard. Which, honestly, because of this card, I really want to play 1 copy of Rose Tentacles, just because I think it'd be funny. But this card gains 400 attack for each plant monster you control except for itself. And then it has the previous effect I mentioned before. You'll use that effect of Perialis, Empress of Blossoms once per turn. Which this card's usually in here because it can be used as an extender. You can use it to bring back one of your 3 copies of Bramble Rose Dragon. Which, I'll be honest, Bramble Rose Dragon is the main thing I love about this deck. As it just makes so that each time your opponent activates a monster effect, I think it was a monster effect, it could just be like a card effect. Monster effect. Okay, yeah. Each time your opponent activates a monster effect, then they take 600 points of damage. And then this card also has the quick effect, I believe, during the main phase. Let's see. Yeah, you can only use the following effect once per turn, which is a hard once per turn, so you have multiple Bramble Rose. You can't just chain all 3. But during the main phase, this quick effect, you can tribute this card, special summon a Black Rose Dragon from your extra deck, treating it as a synchro summon. And then once this card's in your graveyard, you can banish it to then special summon a level 4 or lower plant tuner monster from your graveyard. And then next, I play 3 copies of Black Rose Dragon. Black Rose Dragon has the effect that when it's synchro summoned, you can destroy all cards on the field. And then it also has another effect where you can banish a plant monster from your graveyard to target a defense position monster your opponent controls, change it to attack mode, and its attack points become 0. And then, just because Glow Up Bulb, Revolution Synchron, and Fairy Seed are in this deck, Fairy Seed not as much as the other 2, I do play 1 copy of Crystal Wing Synchro Dragon. Crystal Wing Synchro Dragon is just a monster negate that gets really big when it battles anything that's not a Link monster or an Xyz monster. Which I will explain is because its effect is if this card battles a level 5 or higher monster, then it gains attack equal to that monster's attack until the end of the damage step. And then I also have Crystal Wing also has the effect of when it destroys a monster with its effect, then Crystal Wing also gains that destroyed monster's attack until the end of the turn. Then next I play 1 copy of Arms of Genex Return 0. This is just a generic level 10 synchro monster that can negate monster effects your opponent activates once per turn per attribute. So this deck uses, I did notice because of the Moltar use, does actually use all of the attributes. It has earth, water, fire, wind, and light and dark in the deck. So if you have all of those in your graveyard, then this card can negate 1 monster effect of each attribute per turn. It has another effect, but that relates to Genex, so that effect doesn't really matter for this deck. And then lastly, I play one of my favorite monsters in the deck, which is 1 copy of Ruddy Rose Dragon. Ruddy Rose Dragon has the effect of when it's synchro summoned, you can banish all cards in the graveyards, and then if you made this card using a Black Rose Dragon, then you can also destroy all other cards on the field. I just like this card because of how it's able to just delete the graveyard, more or less. And against the decks I have tested against actually were heavily graveyard reliant. So being able to just erase the graveyard I thought was kind of funny. Although this card existing does make me kind of want to try playing Chaos Greed in the deck as a funny option. Where Chaos Greed is a card that if you have no cards in your graveyard, but 5 or more banished cards, then you can draw 2 cards. I'm not going to do it, but I want to try it, just because I think it'd be funny. But that is it for my Rose Dragon deck profile. Like I said, I'll probably replace the White Rose Cloisters and Rose Princess in the deck for a copy of Rose Tentacles if I want to be funny, 3 Supe Dawnwalker or Duskwalker, and 1 Supe. Just because I do like the idea of a free level 6, or I do like the idea of a free Rage Rose Witch. But if you have any ideas what I can do to improve the deck, any ideas for decks like to see face each other, I'm currently helping one of my friends build a Stardust Yusei deck. So I could potentially record a Yusei versus Akiza video. Or if you have any ideas for decks like to face each other, decks like to be made in the future, or any ways of improving this deck, because for some reason I always forget the third one, get past the other two. I don't know why. If you're still watching, thank you for watching, and I always read the comments.